Welcome to Innovation Tales, your go-to podcast for the human side of digital transformation.
Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Innovation Tales. Have you ever had a feeling that a new technology solution wasn't addressing the actual challenges faced by your organization? Why do project teams regularly commit to a solution before getting a chance to validate its relevance? Today, we explore the benefits of design thinking with Baruch Sachs, Vice President of Global Client Innovation at Pegasystems. He shares his story as a designer who led the company to partner with its clients to help them truly understand their challenges before committing to a technology solution. Baruch leads a team of experts in creating better enterprise technology solutions using business outcomes, design thinking, and rapid prototyping. With over 17 years of experience at Pega and multiple patents in user interface design, Baruch is a visionary in the field of digital transformation. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Baruch Sachs. Baruch, welcome.
Thanks, Alex. Good to be here.
It's an immense pleasure to have you on the show. I feel like since you introduced design thinking to Pega, my client engagements have profoundly changed. And I'm pretty sure that, there's a lot of practitioners around the world that would probably say the same. We'll define what Pega Catalyst is in a later segment.
Sure.
But let's start by giving a bit of context to our audience. When it was introduced, I think it was 2019, what was the challenge that it was addressing?
The challenge was the fact that in most software companies, we sell software based on features, functions. We go and think we know a problem and we come up with a solution. We really want to just jump into the solution space. That's good, but it's not great. And it's not great because what you're trying to do is solve a solution without truly understanding if the problem that you're solving is the right problem to solve. So in general, in technology, design thinking became a thing because, and most of the time we have to dig deep into our past to brush off solutions and apply them to new problems. Design thinking is one of those things. Design thinking is, 50, 60 years old, and suddenly it became a hot new thing over the past, 6, 7 years. It's not anything that is crazy. It is simply saying, you know what? I don't know if the problem I'm trying to solve is the right problem. I think I know the problem, but it would be great to not just tell a client or tell anyone what the problem is. Let's make sure that we're actually kind of figuring out together what the problem is that we're trying to solve and do it in a way that sparks creativity, because it is really hard to focus in on or focus outside of your day-to-day. Your day-to-day kind of dictates what it is that you do. And what we found is when we were talking to prospective clients and trying to help them see the value that Pega would bring, they were just framing their problems and framing the solutions they wanted to solve the problems that they had today. It was hard for them to say, hey, if I didn't have this problem, how would I solve a future problem? How would I solve a different problem? Maybe I have a call center, for instance, and so I think that I need better customer service software, customer relationship management software. I need to improve the quality of my calls. That might not be true. You might actually want people to stop calling you, and you want to put your energies into developing other channels, self-service channels, web channels. I don't want people calling me for a lost password. I want to focus my call center agents on solving really complex problems. But when all you're getting are lost password questions, you think, how do I solve that? I need better software to do that. Not, I need to rethink my problem. And that's where design thinking came in. So that's what we were trying to use it to solve for.
Yeah, that's kind of also the experience that when I mentioned that my client engagements have changed, I think as a result of this approach being kind of the Pega standard, it became easier to validate that there is an actual problem to solve, or that we are solving the right problem. Before that, I guess we were very much in the field copy and pasting solutions from one engagement to the next. And whilst this has tremendous advantage in terms of cost, reuse, and stuff like that, definitely having designers come in and challenge you was I think very, very useful, and it's still useful to this day. But it's been a few years now, 5 years, I guess.
Yeah.
So what's, from your perspective, what were the trends in those last 5 years that have profoundly changed the work of designers, and what ended up being merely buzzwords?
Design thinking, when you say that to people, what has happened is because it became so prevalent so quickly, and firms like IDEO and, Stanford Design School and all these folks, glommed onto it. What happened is that since everybody was doing it, then it became somewhat of a sameness. And one could argue, okay, a standard approach to addressing business requirements and business architecture and then delivery of those is a good thing. What happened is since everyone was doing it, it became a little bit buzzy just to begin with. And then certainly if you had a client who experienced design thinking exercises from us, from another vendor, from internally they said, hey, before we could do anything, we should all get together in a room and put sticky notes up on a wall and, figure this out. People were like, yeah, we did that. And it was really good when we did it in that room, but then we left and we just fell into our same old habits. And so what you're proposing, Pega or anyone, is not that unique to us. So what we had to do is then say, how are we going to do design thinking here? Because as you may imagine, here at Pega, we think of ourselves as rather special with our software and what we do. So if we were going to adopt a very standard approach of design thinking to something very special, we were negating the benefits of what the technology could do. So where it has changed is, I think when we started, we were doing more pure play like design thinking because it was easy entry, very low tech. You got people to align things. As they got a little more sophisticated, maybe that was the second session we did or the third session we did, we started to introduce, let's lean a little bit more on the technology because it's such an accelerator. It is not the end all be all, but maybe we can incorporate this a little bit into our design thinking approach to speed it up. And that's the other thing we definitely saw as change. I would say when we started, we were doing a lot of in-person design thinking workshops. Pandemic happened. Overnight, we had to switch to a hybrid approach. So how do we do that? How do we mimic that? We were successful at it, and there's tools out there that helped us do those collaborations, but we missed out. There was a human element of missing out. And I like to say a lot of times the work we do, there's huge benefits to it, but sometimes the biggest benefit is more of getting people in a room that think they know each other, work together every day, think they know each other's problems, and we facilitate. The facilitation of two groups of people, which is normally business and IT, other teams come in, but mostly it's business and IT, they think they know what each other does. They could be working together for 25 years. They could have barbecues every Sunday. They know each other's kids and everything like that, and they're like, yeah, it's so-and-so down the hall that does a job. But when you bring them together and it's someone outside in facilitating, there's always an aha moment I didn't know you did that. I thought you did this. You're like, how did you not know that? You work with this person. But that's what design thinking brings. And those are some of those intangible kind of benefits that go way beyond the sticky notes and all of that stuff. You lost that during the pandemic. So I think that once we've gained that back now, that we could be in person and talk through some of that stuff, you're just seeing this massive shift towards being able to do things a lot faster. Because the other thing we are seeing is there's exhaustion. It's not just Pega, but it's every vendor that wants to go into a client. They're like, oh yeah, spend some time with us. Spend 3 days, spend 4 days. Well, if I do that with 16 vendors, that's a lot of time that I'm not doing my job. And clients are starting to get that exhaustion. So it's no, don't spend a week with us, spend a day. How do I condense that beautiful process that we did for a week? How do I condense that into a day? So that's a challenge that we've been able to, I think, overcome pretty successfully, but we're still learning.
Echoes of Innovation.
So Baruch, in this segment, we use storytelling to bring our audience authentic insights.
Sure.
However, I always advise my guests to use discretion with names and specifics.
Of course.
To honor confidentiality agreements, to respect people's privacy.
Of course.
With that in mind, it would be great to hear a story that would illustrate the trends that you discussed with regards to, applying design thinking and Pega Catalyst in the last few years that would illustrate how the work of a designer has been transformed by those trends?
So even though I had this organization at Pega called Client Innovation, my training is in design, right? And so I started off on the consulting side, the services side, as a design person. And I remember, so I could tell these stories about myself because I have no privacy. But in general, and I'll weave together certain kind of areas, but there was a design kind of, maybe a lack of maturity, right? When you work for a technology company as a designer, there is a lot of kind of misunderstanding about what it is that designers do. And you realize that it's not the sort of design activities that you're doing, but a lot of your role within an organization is to build a design mindset, a design culture that's going to foster the ability to make it just as important. Because you would never say on like a large technology implementation, you wouldn't have some level of system architect. But you could very easily overlook the fact that you might need a UI person or a UX
what we
designer.
had a long time ago. That's what we had.
Right. That's all. They did everything. So by coming in and they say, hey, we have a design person right now, the initial kind of reaction, I remember the first time, I think I was about a week into this job that I had, here at Pega, like when I first started. And somebody on a project was like, thank God we have you. We really need your help. And of course, I was very excited by that. And I said, yes, how can I help? This is great. They said, we need you to come out to this particular client. We need you to really kind of look at what we've built and help us understand how we could build it better. I said, this is exactly what I do. Good. And I asked a few qualifying questions. I said, who's the client? What industry are they in? What are you building? Standard stuff. And then I said, well, when are you scheduled? So you said it's already built. And then a little kind of warning signs went in the back of my head. I said, when are you going to go live? And they're like, next week. And I said, wait a minute. So you've already been through like design development, UAT, all sorts of stuff. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, how would I make any changes, like fundamental core changes? They're like, well, no, that's fine. We just need you to pick a pretty color. The client doesn't like the colors. Pick colors. And I said, okay, so this is what you think it is that I do. Okay. And now you fast forward, right? You fast forward a number of years. You fast forward where technology companies have embraced artistry. Obviously you could look at Apple as really being huge and saying, technology does not have to be all about the technology. Technology should be about a level of creativity. It should be a level of elegance. Let's mimic what we do in our lives. Because in our lives, we crave simplicity. We crave that with our relationships. We crave that with our work. We crave elegance. We like pretty things. Humans are just generally really comfortable with that, and it makes you feel good.
You identify with it.
We
as well.
identify with it.
I think if you have your business applications, all like mainframe or like really data centric old stuff, you also identify. You think of your job as this really bulky,
Sure.
Work that is not creative. If we can give them an application that is a bit like an Apple, product,
Yep.
I think they feel just differently about their work, right?
They do. And it's much like, if I look at the physical world, it would be akin to if you said, hey, I'm going to buy this piece of land, and then you go to a builder and you say, just build this house. You probably wouldn't do it that way. You would get an architect. You would get somebody to understand dimensions and how is this built and what's the right use of space, et cetera. If I'm walking down in a neighborhood and I walk down a street and the sun is beaming and that street has no trees, it's just concrete. It's really hot. It doesn't feel safe. It feels less good to me as a human being. But if I walk down a very tree-lined, shady street, it's cooler. So there's like physical things, but it's also just, it feels nicer. It just feels like a nicer experience. And it's those intangibles that in a technology world, an engineering focused world, they're very hard because people are not necessarily wired that way. But when you bring up physical, real life examples, you get a couple reactions. Most of the time you get this, oh yeah, I never thought of it that way. Or like, I never even noticed and you realize that people experience the world in different ways. And as a designer, that's super interesting. It can be challenging, but super interesting. So if I look at the story of when I first started as a designer to the fact that, you fast forward and you have all of these improvements in the technology world around the appreciation for design. Some of that stuff is very surface, and you will always find people say they just dabble in it. They don't really understand what we do. And there is a stereotypical, the often maligned designer. They're perpetually frustrated because no one appreciates their artistry. But I took a different approach. I could have easily went that way, and certainly when I started in design, I just had this weird view that I would do really amazing things and solve really amazing problems. And what I realized, though, is the reason why I got into design was born out of laziness. So I started off as a technical writer. Actually, if you really want to go way, way back, I wanted to be like a philosopher. I have a degree in philosophy, and I was like, man, philosophy is really where it's at. It's really cool. Until I realized I will make no money being a philosopher. The days of walking around like Socrates, I don't think can really happen for me. And I said, all right, well, I'm a pretty decent writer. Maybe I should get into this world of technical writing because it seems like that's a job. And my first job out of college was as a technical writer. And I sat down and I started documenting. What I realized very quickly was I was writing a lot. I was documenting a lot to make up for the bad design of the software I was writing about. So I said, well, if we just design the software differently, I could write less. And I realized that was actually my greatest contribution was not in writing, was in software design. Let's think about how I would use it. And if I don't have to write so much about it, it means that the software is really easy to use. Now, Apple took that to great lengths where you never got any, you don't get any instruction booklets, right? We used to always write these big books that nobody would read unless there was a problem. But if you design something where there'll never be a problem, or it'll be so intuitive that I don't need to actually read anything about it, I've successfully done something good with design. Yeah. So you kind of go through this natural progression where you start realizing that design for design's sake is not going to work. But design aligned with business objectives and business outcomes is really where you see things. And if you want to be a purist in design, which I was when I started off, and I think most designers are, you realize in order to align it and be successful, you need to actually think about who's using it, why are they using it, and not create beautiful screens for the sake of beautiful screens. Sometimes a very ugly screen will be very utilitarian and it'll be great. It'll work just well, and it doesn't require you to apply these elegant design principles. Focus in on where you're going to get the most business justification for it. And now I think about where I am as a design person, have expanded the repertoire of what we do. Design is very much a core focus of the Pega Catalyst program or innovation, but it's not the sole focus. It's a design-led approach that focuses on business objectives and business architecture and outcomes.
It's much more strategic, I think.
Yeah, it's much more strategic. And where I've realized is it takes you a number of years to get to that point where you start feeling like maybe you have some lessons to impart for others. So I could have easily not ever really thought about the design programs that I went through in college and grad school. But I actually reached out, in the past number of years to say, I'd be happy to guest lecture at these, classes, graduate level classes. Mm-hmm. And going in and seeing people that some of them have been in the workplace a year, some of them have been there for 10 years. You start talking about this and it really did resonate. You see their arc, you see their kind of progression as a design person, and you start having these conversations that I don't think are happening enough in the design community about the changes of design and how design is going to actually influence the development of technologies and the development of products in the years to come. It just has to take a more practical approach. And I think that is probably the biggest storyline for me is you go from purity to practicality. Mm-hmm. And if you told me when I was in my 20s that, Baruch, don't worry, you are going to get to that practical level, I would say, well, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to be able to do everything I want to do without change. And it's everyone else that has to change. As you start having experiences and you realize, and you could be angry about it all your life, but if you really want to be practical about it, you figure out how to weave through it and you figure out how to mature it so that has the bigger impact. And so that arc from purity to practicality is one I don't think gets talked about a lot, but I often think about it as my design story as I went through my career.
Cool, amazing. Now, before we move on to the next segment, if you found this tale of innovation insightful, please like and subscribe to help us grow our audience.
Blueprints of Innovation.
So, Baruch, in this second segment, we look at the tools and methods, and you've mentioned Pega Catalyst, and I think I mentioned it as well. I think it would be good to give our audience a brief overview of what this approach entails.
Sure. So the Pega Catalyst program was started about 5 years ago within Pega, and the reason why it was started was there was this better understanding of a need to much more deeply engage our clients and potential clients in a couple of different areas. So if you wanted to sell somebody something, you were successful at it, there was often a gap between when a deal closes and then when you start actually developing that. People might have left the organization, there might be shifting priorities, oftentimes there were, and that handoff that is always pervasive between like the sales and delivery might not have been done effectively. And then you start building something for a client, it doesn't go well or it stalls out, and then you realize what you're building is solving a problem that's no longer a problem, or the problem is morphed, or the requirements are crazy, or you're just building the wrong thing to begin with. And I started thinking about the fact that if we could get engaged earlier on, and we can much more align with our business and IT organizations within this client to basically ensure that the problem we're solving is the right problem, it's critical to the business, you get that alignment, your success would be a lot better. Also, it tried to solve this articulation of what Pega does, and by going at it less from a technology perspective and more from a business perspective, you're reaching that business audience that honestly doesn't care about Pega or what technology you're using. They have a problem, they would like it to go away. And you start talking a different language. You start talking about, what business problems are you really keep you up at night? Sometimes our clients would come to us and say, we know Pega is the right solution, we just don't know where to start. We're really paralyzed. And you have to start understanding that these large organizations, people get scared. They get scared that they're going to fail. They get scared that they are going to not have a job because they fail, those types of things. So really, we started the Pega Catalyst program to de-risk the investment. Well, we started, honestly, to invest in our clients to de-risk the investment they made in us. And that was a very key kind of shift. So we call it Pega Catalyst, but what it really means is we are going to apply a design-led approach to better understand your business, better understand the problems you're trying to solve, align stakeholders, and figure out what is the most important problem that we're going to go solve. We're going to very, very quickly showcase how that would look in action, meaning a prototype of some sort, and we are going to help you sell it internally to your audience, to your stakeholders, to your leadership. And so when we first started this program, we would do a lot of the executive presentations. We now almost exclusively have our stakeholders, our clients, to do it themselves. They can
help them.
They can help.
But it's better for them to own it.
Absolutely. I would rather a client be able to pitch that they need Pega without us ever uttering a word, right? I don't even want to be in the meeting. I would love it if they can confidently articulate the value. Because what we found too is, you find a stakeholder in an organization, they really want to use you, but are they saying the right things? How you don't necessarily know or have insight into how they're using Pega to sell what it is that they want to do. So having a little bit more control over that is obviously a great advantage. But I think the key is is we don't lead with a technology bent. We lead with a business problem bent, which is huge. We start speaking that language versus a technical language, you're just going to reach a broader audience within a potential client.
I remember coming back from one of the Pega Worlds, probably 2019, being inspired by your presentation. I think it was with Digital Fast Forward that you were doing. So I was like, oh, what is this? This is super interesting. Picked up a book, read it. 2 weeks later, we were doing a design sprint for one of our clients. Buy the book, because we were new to this. And despite probably fumbling a little bit, because, we're completely new to this.
Sure.
I'm not from a design background, although through interactions with you and some of your team members, I think I tried to learn about it a little bit more. But back to the client that we first applied some design thinking with, their feedback was, wow, we should always be working like this. And of course you can't, because it's very high intensity, energetic, so you can't sustain it. But I think it really, to me, represents the advantage of of thinking like this, thinking through kind of what is the problem space before thinking about the solution space. Because they come out, the clients, of this exercise much more energized.
They do, I think the energy that you're talking about is a really key one, because like as we've been talking about throughout all of these segments, how have things changed? Like how have things matured over time? What are the learnings you're taking? That energy, we used to just be okay and happy that we got that energy, and we stopped. We moved on to the next thing. That energy, what we found, is super fleeting. And so I don't know if you ever have gone and seen a motivational speaker or anything like that. You're sitting in an audience, it's a dark auditorium, the person's speaking, and you're like, wow, I really feel like I could make a change in my life, in my business, in my relation, whatever it is. And you're like, what this person is saying really resonates, and you get energized. You leave that auditorium, you go back to your regular life, and you're like, I don't know how to turn that into reality. I don't know actually how to turn that into change. And I think when we started the Pega Catalyst program, we felt that it was enough to just energize our clients and that they would be able to go and do great things. What we realized is we actually do need to stay longer and engage longer. And one of the things that has kept me at Pega for a long time is the way we treat our clients. Like, we don't treat it very transactionally. We treat it over a course of a life cycle. And when I talk to friends and colleagues at other software companies, they're like, so are you in pre-sales? Are you in post-sales? And I like to say we're in continuous sale. It's a continuous approach. Like, I don't want to just sell you one thing and forget about you. I'd like to be able to sell you something, have you deliver it, and then a year from now, love it so much you want more and more and more. I can't do that if I don't invest the time in you.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So a lot of software vendors talk about, we don't want to be just a vendor, we want to be a trusted partner, right? Those are the common terms for it. And I say, okay, so if you want to be the trusted partner, after you've sold this deal and after you turn it over to somebody to deliver it, how close are you in the delivery? Well, that's the delivery partner that does it. I think at Pega we do things a lot differently, where we're able to say, no, we are with you, and if there's a problem, you can call us. And so in the Pega Catalyst program, we used to just stop after an engagement, and we never capitalized on that excitement. And it was a mistake. And what we realized is that excitement needs to be nurtured. And that excitement and energy needs to be properly channeled and facilitated into making something real and happen. So that a year from now, if I go talk to maybe it's Pega World to Pega World, right? I talk to a client at Pega World, we engage with them for a few months. I want them to come back. And I'm proud to say that if I track our record there of a number of Pega Worlds, I might have a meeting and then we work with them, and then by the next Pega World, they're up on the main stage speaking about their experiences, which I think is just a tremendous testament to that level of the nurturing relationship and not abandoning your client and making sure that their energy and excitement is channeled into the right things.
Innovators Playbook.
So in this third and last segment, we aim to provide practical advice to our audience. What do you think business and digital leaders should consider when they are thinking about design and innovation nowadays?
Yeah. So I think, and what I've seen that has led me to this is the fact that we sort of confuse what innovation is about. And, transformation is sort of this slow burn. It can start off slow. It can kind of grow and grow and grow and grow. And if you don't contain it, it becomes out of control. And most of our clients have undergone transformation for years and years and years and have not really succeeded. And I think it's really a mentality. We are looking at the problem of transformation in fundamentally the wrong way. Instead of something that has a start and a stop, it is something that is continually built into your DNA. Because, look, a year ago, Gen AI wasn't a thing. If any business leader in 2019 that said, I have a 5-year plan, 2020 came and everybody's plan went away. So I think, being able to say that transformation is just part of our DNA, it's part of our culture, we will adapt, et cetera, is a core tenet of being able to continue to remain relevant for years to come. Innovation is also thought of really differently and perhaps in the wrong way, where a lot of times people think innovation is something new. And innovation is 99% of the time nothing new. It is taking what exists already and thinking about it in a new way. And that critical thinking, that thought process, that ability to look at things and say, you know what, I'm going to take a step back, shake my head, look back at it again and say, oh my God, that's how you should do it. That is the innovative spark, right? So where transformation is this slow burning ember of a thing, innovation is that spark of creativity that happens in a nanosecond, because suddenly I look at something in a different way and I can never unsee it, right? It's like those, those 3D pictures that try to, it looks like nothing and then all of a sudden you see the image and you're like, oh my God, I can never see it. I remember a famous story of I never thought growing up when I saw the Federal Express, trucks, I never realized there was an arrow in the middle of that logo until somebody told me and I saw it. Now I can never not see an arrow, right? So it's one of those things where you just, and that's a spark. That's that spark of innovation that can be replicated. So the practical approach is stop trying so hard, right? To put a stop to an end date to the transformation. Know that things will change. Know that innovation will happen multiple times within a transformative process. Embrace the fact that you don't always know what is happening. Definitely have an overarching kind of goal, a North Star, whatever you want to call it, but just know that it doesn't have a stop and know that it will always be changing. And I think where we've seen the greatest success is with clients that have changed their mindset, because used to be people would say, well, I have a 3-year transformation project or a 1-year transformation project. Now people are kind of saying, I have a transformation goal, a transformation approach, and I don't know when it might stop. I don't know if it has. It's open-ended. And I think any large organization, medium organization, even a small organization needs to think about it all within relative context of the fact that they should be continually doing a level of transformation with a number of innovations that happen throughout that process versus looking at a big bang approach or a big bang innovation. That becomes critical, I think. From a design perspective, being able to tie design towards business objectives. The design activities are changing. AI will change a lot of that stuff. AI is already, we're already using it to produce presentations, videos, video scripting. You could obviously use it to produce code. You could produce UI screens. It used to be everyone was in a design mode where it was about creating these perfect images and pixel perfect and all of this stuff. That is going away. That is becoming commoditized. And so AI is playing a part and will continue to play a huge part. My advice is don't fear that. Accept it. A lot of times in the design world, you do things out of necessity, not because you love it. The design concepts that you're coming up with, the creative side is still going to be there. AI is now this super fast tool. I don't want to spend 1,000 hours in a video editing tool or an image editing tool or, creating the perfect screens to then hand to a developer to develop. I want to come up with the ideas in the first place. And so the people that really like doing that, I guess my practical advice is hopefully you'll find something else to like, because those are the pieces, those tactical, very rote kind of pieces that AI will supplant. But it will free you up, and I'm happy to talk about like the specifics, unlike those articles I mentioned in the past that don't. That will free you up to come up with understanding your business better. Like, you cannot design for a business without understanding the business. And so a lot of times in the design world, we talk about the fact that how am I supposed to design for a user that I've never met, that I've never seen, that I don't know about? Take that same approach and apply it to the business in which you're doing. Because if you are not designing with your business objectives in mind, with a business goal, not understanding the organizational goals, like not taking the time to understand all that stuff, design will be put to the side for the achievement of those business goals. So if you want to place at the table, understand where the work that you're doing fits into the larger organizational goals. And so, again, like the design pieces that are very, very, I think, thought of as fundamental to the design world are not. We need to rethink that. Like the stuff that AI can do, let it do it. Free you up to think about your design strategy in the, in the art of the possible, etc.
And as we are about to conclude, are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave our audience with?
Yeah, I think in general, innovation will remain a key part of what software companies do, what any company really wants to do. And investing in innovation is going to become critical. Lots of times when the economy is bad or there are constraints or things like that, people say, well, we just can't afford to invest in innovation. If you have that mindset that you can't afford to invest in innovation, you will eventually fail. There's no better time than right now to be innovative. There's no better time that I can remember in my entire career where innovation is as important as it is right now. So, and you do hear a lot that word, innovation, innovation, innovation. And if you go back a little bit to my key point, just remember and keep in mind that innovation is not about newness. It is about looking at things new. It's a total subtlety, but it is an important one, where if you look at something in a new way, that is what brings you forward, not trying to create something new all the time. So,
a great point to finish on. Baruch, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure for me as well.
That's it for this episode of Innovation Tales. I hope you enjoyed Baruch's account of the history of design thinking at Pega. I think he makes a great point regarding our digital transformation efforts. Rather than merely projects, they represent a continuous activity where we seek new perspectives in a constantly changing environment. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. Or you can rate and review the show in your favorite podcasting app. We look forward to your feedback. In the meantime, we have more topics and guests lined up, so stay tuned for more tales of innovation that inspire, challenge, and transform. Until next time, peace.
Thanks for tuning in to Innovation Tales. Get inspired, connect with other practitioners, and approach the digital revolution with confidence. Visit innovation-tales.com for more episodes. See you next time.